Beautiful creatures of the world, and welcome back to Coffee with Kerri-Lynn. Except this afternoon, it is sparkling water and juice. It is a right fine day in the Crown of Maine on the Canadian border in the Great White North, and we are listening to everybody enjoying the first day of school vacation. Yes, we are. We are listening to you guys snowmobile back and forth and back on the trails. Our house is smack dab in the middle of the trails, and we are very happy to hear all the excitement and the buzz outside. Absolutely. But remember, while you're having a great time, and I know y'all got the need for speed, slow down a little bit. Bear in mind there are other people than you on the trails, and when you come to a road crossing, please come to a full stop on your sled, look both ways, and then continue on to having a fine, safe vacation. They do not call Maine vacation land for nothing, and everybody's enjoying themselves. Sledding, hearing those snowmobiles, that is the sound of winter. Winter has finally arrived. We had a slow start to it, but they're all having fun out back now, so be safe, and we hope to report that at the end of the week that it was a very safe school vacation week. Today we're going to do an episode on family focus, and today's focus is on mom and dad, the heads of the household, because mom and dad need a little extra. They absolutely do. I turned 52 this weekend, so I lived a lot of life. We had normal childhoods. We had normal teenage years with all the stress, strain, and teenage angst. We got married. We raised our children, not necessarily in that order. And our children grew up fairly safe in the world around them. They had the normal teenage angst and growing pains. And then they got married and they had children, and our grandchildren are currently living in some very frightening times. Times I didn't think would ever exist. I just thought we'd all just kind of go through. But whatever happens in this life, guys, you're going to make it. You're going to survive. Well, Kerri, how do you know we're going to survive? Well, it's very simple. You are here watching this video. You exist in this time and space with me, even though it's live pre-recorded. Your ancestors lived through historical atrocities. Guys and dolls, the stuff your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents went through, and your great-great-grandparents and your great-grandparents went through, was atrocious times. They lived through such disastrous times in history. They've lived through wars. They've lived through starvation. Let's not call it the fancy famine word. Let's call it what it is. It was starvation. They lived through points of history that we cannot ever conceive. And in those dark times, they found love. They found beauty. They found strength. You're the product of powerful human spirit. So whatever is thrown at us, you're going to survive. I'm going to survive. Our children are going to flourish. Our grandchildren are going to flourish. Things are going to change. We don't know what the outcome is going to look like, but there will be an outcome, and then there'll be a stability. Politics affects every aspect of our lives, and please don't roll your eyes at me. I know nobody wants to talk about politics, but the men and women that we elect to serve us often forget that they're public servants. They often forget that they work for the little people. But they all know one thing. They know that your personal economy is true freedom. And they make choices and they make decisions, and that makes shit roll downhill. And it falls right on our shoulders. The little guy falls on our shoulders to burden. So while we've got cultural decay, we've got moral value decay, we've got the chaos going on in the world, We've got economic angst and stress and strife at home. We've got shortages of stuff on our grocery shelves. We've got loss of jobs. We've got small incomes with very large bills. Some of us have big credit lines. Some of us have no credit lines. When you elect your politicians, the people, the politicians, they make rules, they make laws, they make regulations. We don't all benefit from this. Sometimes some of us benefit, and sometimes some of us lose. It is very important right now, moms and dads, to preserve the family foundation. If you have a strong marriage, if you work together, if you build a life together, and I mean build together, work as a couple, your goal is your family, your goal is your children. It's their happiness. It's food, shelter, clothing, happiness for your children. It's giving them a stable, safe environment to grow up in. If you have a strong foundation, these times are going to make it stressful. You're going to get the stress cracks, absolutely. But your foundation will not crumble. We need to go back to family time. We need to come home from work. We need to set work outside the door. We need to close the door. We need to sit at the family dinner table. And moms and dads, that is the time to listen to your children, to ask them questions, to inquire about their day. It is not the time for you and your husband to discuss the boss being an a-hole, lack of money, how you're going to pay certain bills. Dinner time has got to come back to the family unit and has got to be about the children. Ask them what they did at school this day. Ask them how they're feeling. Ask them if they're stressed. Ask them if they're afraid. Find out what's going on in their lives. Absolutely. That's your goal at dinner. Had to pause. We had turkeys going in the road. Dinner time needs to be about your children. Listen to what they say to you. They're revealing their hopes, their dreams, and their fears to you. When a child has stress and strain, when their friendship isn't going right at school, and nobody wants to sit at them at the cafeteria table, those are major crises in that child's life. We as adults often glaze over that. But at the moment, that is their life crisis. They've got to figure out how to manipulate and get through that, and you need to be their sounding board. At the same time, your children are not your sounding boards. We have to bear that in mind. We need to, as parents, as husbands and wives, treat each other a little differently during these difficult times. The kids know what's next. The kids know, they hear about it in school, that war is imminent. They listen to what other people say. They look at the environment around them. It's scary. We need to make sure that we are strong in our marriages. Absolutely. Now is the time. Your children cannot see you bickering and fighting. Keep that behind closed doors. And I know that is hard. I know it is easy to engage in the snipe because we live in a world of immediacy, a world of right now, a world of me first. And we all, to some degree, practice this. And when we are slated, especially by our spouse, we're apt to snap back. We need to refrain from that. What our children need from us now, more than ever, They need to see mom and dad working as a true couple, a true union. They need to see you guys hug each other a little longer. They need to see you guys kiss on the cheek, kiss on the lips. They need to see the affection, but not just a pretend outward affection. They need to see when you're sitting at the dinner table and you look across the table at your spouse, they need to see the love in your eyes for each other, the adoration for each other. People get married and they forget to date each other. They let the marriage slowly erode from the stress of everyday living, from the stress of children, from the stress of jobs. You stop touching each other, you stop holding hands, you stop sitting close together on the couch. Eventually, the children see that mom and dad live quite separately. Mom and dad need to live as one. That's what you promised when you got married. You promised to take two separate lives and make one life out of it. You promised that the goals were going to be the best for your family. And the best for your family is a healthy foundation. And that foundation starts with the parents. So while we're all worried about what's going on in the world, we really do need to shut the door behind us and leave the world outside our homes. There's a few catchphrases people like to use. The family that prays together stays together, and I don't care what your spirituality is. And the family that plays together stays together. So instead of being independent on your devices, get some family time. Sit down, watch a movie, have a good laugh. And mom and dad sit on the couch together and hold hands. Children that see parents that do not show affection, well, studies do show that they fall into one of two categories. They do not understand what a healthy relationship is, so they get into a relationship where they're either not being attended affectionately, or they do not attend their future partner and spouse affectionately. And eventually that causes breakdowns. We need to get back to the core value of humanity, and that is love and kindness. When you get married, you choose to devote your life to your spouse and your spouse to you. When you're raising children, the devotion is there on the children. Make sure the devotion to each other, the commitment to your relationship doesn't slide and your focus doesn't become all about your children. Because one day, your kids are going to grow up. They're going to get married. They're going to move on. And it's going to be the two of you. It's just the natural progression of life. So during these trying times, moms and dads, please make your household as loving and safe as possible. And above all, while you're showering affection on your children, make sure that you're showering it on your spouse as well. Carpe diem, beautiful creatures of the world, because no one promised you a tomorrow.